Welcome to today's deep dive. And to start things off, may God deeply bless your day and your entire week ahead.
Yes, absolutely.
So I want you to imagine standing in the dusty square of an ancient city. You're watching this trial conclude, and the tension is just palpable.
Oh, I can picture it.
Right. And the local judge turns to the primary witness and basically says, "You prove the accused is guilty. Now you must cast the first stone."
Which is just a massive shift in responsibility.
It really is. And today we are looking at this diagnostic landscape of ancient power that is shockingly sophisticated. We're examining the legal structures of ancient Israel, specifically focusing on chapter 17 of Deuteronomy.
Right. And our guides for this exploration are two highly detailed scholarly sources. We've got the Holman Study Bible and the NAA, the Novel Almeida Achulazada Study Bible.
Both excellent resources.
Yeah, they really are. Both of these sources peel back the layers of this ancient text to reveal something far more complex than just, a rigid list of archaic rules handed down by some untouchable authority.
Yet the scholars pull themes out of this text that completely redefine our expectations of ancient governance.
Totally.
Far from being like a blueprint for a dictatorship, this framework deals with high treason. It deals with the establishment of a centralized Supreme Court, and it imposes these radical limitations on absolute political power. Okay, let's unpack this.
Where do we start?
Well, we have to start at the absolute foundation of this ancient Israelite legal system, which is the citizen's allegiance, and how the ultimate crime against that allegiance was handled right at the local level.
Yeah, because the baseline for this entire society is the covenant.
Right.
Think of it as a binding national agreement between the people and God. Like, everything flows from that foundational relationship.
Which is why the text actually opens with a seemingly minor regulation, right? It sets the thematic tone.
Exactly, this strict prohibition against sacrificing a blemished animal.
Yeah, if you have an ox or a sheep with a severe defect, you cannot offer it. The text literally labels this an abomination.
Which sounds harsh to us, but...
Yeah. But that opening regulation makes perfect sense when you consider the social dynamics of respect.
Oh, for sure.
If you invite a dignitary to your home, you don't serve them, like table scraps or a half-eaten meal.
I mean, I hope you don't.
Right, exactly. Offering a diseased animal is just a fundamental display of contempt for the covenant. And the text immediately escalates from that contempt to the ultimate crime, which is idolatry.
Right, specifically worshiping the sun, the moon, or the stars. What the text refers to as the host of heaven, or serving other gods.
So when an accusation of idolatry surfaces, the local citizens are instructed to investigate it thoroughly.
And if the claim is found to be true, the punishment is severe.
Very severe. The community is ordered to take the individual to the city gates and stone them to death.
However, this is where a remarkably strict evidentiary rule is introduced to govern the whole process.
Thank goodness, because that's intense. The legal framework insists that a person can only be put to death on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Right. The text explicitly states that on the testimony of one single witness, no one shall be put to death.
And the Holman Study Bible provides some crucial context for you to understand why the stakes were so high here. The notes explain that in a theocracy, which ancient Israel was, idolatry breaks the very first commandment.
Yeah, it literally functions as high treason.
Right. Because in our modern context, you're accustomed to religion as state being separate spheres. But in that ancient setting, they were entirely fused.
A religious infraction was a civic threat.
Exactly. To map this onto a modern scenario for you, it is comparable to constitutional treason.
Like selling state secrets.
Yeah, if you imagine a citizen selling highly sensitive defense-grade access codes to an enemy state, they are committing a crime against the very survival of the nation.
Which is exactly how they viewed abandoning the covenant to worship the sun or the moon. It threatened the entire society's operational foundation.
But I want to push back on the actual mechanics of the punishment outlined here, because the text adds this deeply unsettling detail regarding the execution.
The first stone rule.
Yes. The witnesses who testify against the accused are required to throw the first stones. I mean, isn't the requirement for the witnesses to actually start the execution incredibly intense?
It is, but what's fascinating here is the psychological brilliance of that specific requirement. Think about human nature and how easy it is to whisper a rumor.
Oh yeah, people love to gossip.
Right. And it's even relatively easy to stand up in a formal setting and point a finger, as long as you know a faceless state entity will handle the actual messy business of punishment.
Yeah, the system usually insulates the accuser from the physical consequence of their words.
But by forcing the witnesses to strike the first blows, before the rest of the community joins in to purge the evil, the law creates a visceral accountability mechanism.
Wow, yeah. The Holman and NLEA notes both highlight that this strict witness rule, combined with the physical act of initiating the execution, is designed to protect citizens from personal vendettas.
And false testimony. You have to be absolutely certain of what you saw.
Because if you're lying out of spite or, I don't know, jealousy over a property line,
You aren't just telling a falsehood in court. You are actively, with your own two hands, taking the life of your neighbor.
that is heavy. The sheer physical and emotional weight of initiating that execution prevents casual or malicious accusations from tearing the community apart.
It raises the stakes for the accuser to an agonizing level, forcing them to put their own conscience on the line.
Okay, so local courts and local citizens handled these clear-cut cases of treason where multiple reliable witnesses were present.
Right.
But what happens when the situation on the ground isn't clear-cut? Like, imagine a scenario where a local judge is looking at a complex dispute or a homicide where the evidence is totally ambiguous and the witnesses conflict.
Well, no decentralized legal system can handle every dispute at the local level.
Exactly.
There are always edge cases that just stump the local magistrates.
And the text anticipates this perfectly. It mandates that if a case involving homicide, complex litigation, or assault is simply too difficult to judge locally, the people must travel.
They are instructed to go up to the place the Lord chooses.
Yeah, they essentially have to escalate the dispute to a central higher authority. They're commanded to consult the Levitical priests and the judge who is in office at that time.
This functions as the ancient equivalent of a Supreme Court. You have a central body of legal and religious experts reviewing the most difficult cases from across the nation.
And when this central court hears the case and delivers a verdict, the text is incredibly firm about the aftermath. The verdict is absolutely final.
The people are instructed that they must not turn from it to the right or the left.
And if anyone shows arrogance and intentionally disobeys this supreme verdict, that person is to be put to death.
Wow.
Yet the phrase "to purge the evil" appears again, with the stated goal that the whole nation will hear about it and be afraid to act arrogantly.
So the intention is clear deterrence. The integrity of the central judicial system has to be maintained at all costs.
I mean, I can easily track with the concept of a Supreme Court. Every society needs a final arbiter to resolve endless disputes. But I have to ask about the severity here. Putting someone to death just for contempt of court.
It does sound extreme.
Right. Imagine a citizen in your own community receiving capital punishment for ignoring a judge's ruling on a property dispute. That seems radically disproportionate. Why not just imprison them or heavily fine them or, I don't know, strip them of their land?
It undeniably seems disproportionate to a modern mind accustomed to tiered penal systems. But returning to the study Bible notes we're examining, you have to remember the core premise governing this society.
Which is?
There is absolutely no separation between the secular and the sacred.
Ah, right. The Holman notes are very explicit about that fusion. A civil crime and a spiritual sin were the exact same thing.
Exactly. The priests and the presiding judge weren't just civil servants interpreting a secular constitution.
Right.
They were acting in direct alignment with divine revelation, operating in the specific location chosen by God.
So defying this central court wasn't just a procedural technicality.
Or a minor legal misdemeanor. No. You aren't just ignoring a human judge wearing a robe. You are directly challenging the divine sovereign's authority.
Because in a theocracy, the judge is the authorized proxy of the ultimate king.
Precisely. Arrogant defiance of that final centralized verdict is a public declaration that you do not recognize God's rule over the nation.
And if that behavior is allowed to stand without consequence,
The entire covenantal structure unravels. It is treated as the highest form of rebellion, and in their ancient context, it required the highest penalty to ensure the survival of the community's legal framework.
okay, that reframes the punishment completely. It's not about protecting the bruised ego of a human magistrate. It's about neutralizing an existential threat to the nation's entire operating system.
Exactly.
So we've established that the ultimate judicial power rests with the priests and the judge under God's authority. But the text eventually addresses a monumental shift in the political landscape.
Right. What happens when the citizens look at the empires around them and decide that a network of judges just isn't enough?
They demand a human political monarch.
This represents a pivotal transition in the historical and legal development of Israel. The desire for a centralized, visible political figurehead Changes the dynamics of power entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text actually anticipates this demand. The instructions state, when you enter the land, you're going to say, let us set a king over us, like all the nations around us.
And permission is granted.
Yeah. The NWA notes point out that God wasn't entirely against the concept of a king. A royal line was actually prophesied way back in the book of Genesis.
But the restrictions placed on whoever takes this throne are shocking.
Truly shocking.
They systematically dismantle everything it meant to be a successful monarch in the ancient Near East.
Okay, first, the basic ground rules. The king must be chosen by God, and he must be a fellow Israelite. No foreign rulers can be placed on the throne. But it's the negative commands that are truly counterintuitive. The text says the king must not acquire many horses, and specifically, he must not send the people back to Egypt to get those horses.
No horses.
Right. He must not take many wives, and he must not accumulate massive amounts of silver and gold for himself.
Those three prohibitions target the primary pillars of ancient royal power.
Think about what this would look like if you tried to apply it to a modern scenario. Imagine a corporate board of directors hiring a hotshot CEO to run a vulnerable, massive Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
But in the employment contract, they legally forbid the CEO from utilizing a corporate jet, they completely eliminate the marketing budget, and they ban the CEO from attending any industry networking events.
You're essentially stripping them of every conventional tool of success.
Exactly. How on earth is a king supposed to actually govern, project strength, and protect his nation without a strong military cavalry, which is what the horses represented?
He can't, in the traditional sense.
Right. And how does he secure essential peace treaties without political marriages, which is what the wives were for? And how does he fund a national administration without a massive treasury? It sounds like a guaranteed recipe for a failed state.
The sheer impracticality of it is exactly the point.
Really?
Yes. The Study Bible commentary provides crucial insight here. Those three elements, military power represented by an Egyptian cavalry, diplomatic alliances forged through multiple marriages, and economic dominance represented by stockpiles of silver and gold.
Yeah.
These were the standard prerogatives of ancient absolute power. They were the dictator's playbook.
A dictator's playbook. Wow.
When a human being accumulates a massive army, an intricate web of foreign alliances, and unlimited wealth, they inevitably become self-reliant.
They no longer feel the need to depend on the covenant or the community.
By explicitly forbidding the king from building his power using these traditional methods, the law intentionally forces the monarch into a position of radical vulnerability.
He has no choice but to rely entirely on the covenant.
He must trust God for protection from invaders, rather than relying on an Egyptian cavalry. He must trust God for border security, rather than relying on a harem of foreign princesses.
And the prohibition against returning to Egypt for horses is particularly profound, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The Israelites had just been liberated from Egyptian slavery. Sending citizens back there just to build a military machine would be a total reversal of their national deliverance.
And the NWA notes explicitly point out that this passage serves as a tragic, almost eerie prophecy regarding King Solomon.
Oh, Solomon is the perfect example of this. He is historically renowned for his wisdom, but he spectacularly failed this specific three-part test.
He failed all three.
All three. Later in Israel's history, Solomon accumulated thousands of stalls for his horses, he married hundreds of foreign wives to secure political alliances, and he amassed unimaginable wealth, including purely decorative gold shields.
Just showing off. And exactly as this text warns, the consequences were devastating.
His wives led his heart astray into the very idolatry that the local courts were supposed to punish. And his obsession with wealth led him to impose heavy taxation and forced labor on his own citizens.
He basically morphed into the exact kind of pharaoh-like tyrant his ancestors had escaped from.
Exactly. The restrictions outlined in Deuteronomy 17 are specifically designed to prevent a monarch from turning his own brothers and sisters back into slaves for the sake of his own glory.
So the law preemptively strips the king of the weapons of tyranny. But taking away the military parades, the foreign diplomacy, and the treasury management creates a massive vacuum in the king's schedule.
It really does. What is he supposed to do all day?
Right. If the ruler isn't spending his days inspecting the cavalry or counting gold, what is he actually supposed to do with his time on the throne?
Well, the text provides a highly unusual job description to fill that void. It gives the ultimate political authority a mandatory daily assignment.
It gives him the ultimate homework assignment.
It does.
The text mandates that when he takes the throne, his very first act must be to handwrite a complete copy of this law on a scroll.
And he cannot just copy it from memory. He has to transcribe it directly from the master scroll kept by the Levitical priests.
The physical act of transcription is key. He cannot delegate this task to a royal scribe while he attends to state business. He has to sit down and write every word himself.
And the assignment doesn't end when the ink dries.
Oh no. The text commands that he must keep this written scroll with him, and he must read it all the days of his life.
Every single day.
And the stated goals of this lifelong reading requirement are profound. He reads it to learn to fear the Lord and to carefully observe all the words of the law.
But here is the most crucial psychological goal. He reads it so that his heart does not become arrogant.
Right. The text literally translates to ensuring his heart is not exalted above his brothers.
And to prevent him from turning from the law to the right or the left. The Holman commentary emphasizes how revolutionary this concept is when viewed against the backdrop of the ancient world.
So what does this all mean? Let's use another modern analogy to grasp the weight of this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a newly elected president of the United States. On their very first day in the Oval Office, before taking a single intelligence briefing or meeting with a cabinet member, they were required to sit at the Resolute desk and hand copy the entire Constitution.
That would take a while.
Right. Then they are legally required to carry that handwritten notebook in their pocket and read from it every single morning for the rest of their term.
That's quite the image.
My question for the text is, does just reading a book really prevent a monarch from becoming a tyrant?
You're skeptical.
I mean, it seems a bit idealistic to think a daily reading habit can curb the corrupting nature of absolute power.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of ancient governance, we realize it's not merely a reading exercise, it is a massive paradigm shift.
How so?
In the ancient Near East, kings didn't read the law in order to submit to it. Kings were the law.
Right.
Their spoken word was reality. Rulers like the pharaohs were often viewed as literal deities, or at least the adopted sons of the gods, existing completely above the rules that governed the common agricultural worker.
They were untouchable by the very laws they enforced on others.
Exactly. This raises an important question. How do you subordinate a king?
You put the law above him.
This text does something completely unprecedented by placing the written law above the king. The monarch is not the source of the law. He is merely a student of it.
He is subject to the exact same rules as the poorest farmer in the land.
Notice the specific language the text uses. It does not call the citizens his subjects or his servants or his property. It calls them his brothers.
That specific linguistic choice, ensuring his heart is not exalted above his brothers, is incredible.
The daily reading is a constant, humbling psychological reminder. Every single time he opens that scroll, he is forced to remember, I am not God. I did not invent these rules. I am fully accountable to the true king, and the people outside this palace are my siblings, not my commodities.
Wow.
It serves as the ultimate daily check on the human ego. And the text promises that if he adheres to this posture of submission, he will prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children.
So true. Lasting stability for the nation doesn't come from military horses and stockpiled gold. It comes from the leader's unwavering commitment to the law and a humble heart toward the people he serves.
Precisely.
When you pull back and look at the massive arc of Deuteronomy 17 that we've covered today, the sophistication is just breathtaking.
It really is.
We started at the grassroots level, with everyday citizens holding each other accountable for treason, bearing the agonizing physical weight of throwing the first stone to ensure absolute certainty and prevent false accusations.
And from the local level, we move to a centralized Supreme Court of priests and judges,
Right.
where arrogant defiance of the final verdict was treated not as a procedural error, but as a direct rebellion against the foundational fabric of the society itself.
And finally, we ended at the absolute apex of political power. We see a king who is systematically stripped of the conventional weapons of domination. He's denied military might, forbidden from complex diplomatic entanglements, and barred from extreme wealth.
Instead of building an empire, he is forced to sit down, like a student, hand copy the law, and read it daily just to remember that he is merely a brother to his citizens.
It is a comprehensive, interlocking system of accountability that spans from the city gates to the throne room. It really leaves you with a lot to chew on regarding the nature of power and the vulnerabilities of human nature.
I think it leaves you with a very sharp, almost uncomfortable question to ponder as you go about your week.
Oh, definitely.
We've just explored how an ancient text written thousands of years ago recognized that the absolute best way to prevent the abuse of power is to intentionally strip leaders of their massive wealth, strictly limit their military posturing, and force them to deeply study and submit to the law every single day.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do our modern systems of choosing, evaluating, and monitoring our own leaders actually measure up to this ancient, rigorous standard? Are we demanding this level of structural humility, or are we still just easily impressed by the modern equivalents of horses and gold?
That is an incredible question to leave hanging in the air. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And as we sign off, I want to say that God blesses all of you listening. Until next time.